แล้วก็ตอนนี้มาถึงเวลาที่ทุกท่านรอคอยแล้วนะคะเพราะว่าเราได้รับเกียรติจากคุณไซมอนคอลลินส์ค่ะจากสถาบันสอนการออกแบบพาสันนิวยอร์กประเทศสหรัฐอเมริกานะคะวันนี้คุณไซมอนจะมาบรรยายในหัวข้อ Multicultural Co-Create The Campaign Against Bad Design ค่ะ Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to welcome Mr. Simon Collins from Parsons School of Design from New York, United States of America. Please, sir.
Someone said to me, what's the point of this event? And I said, we will send people off at the end of the day with ideas they can do something with. They can do things better.
I think the word plus size is just ridiculous.
Is it a fad? No, not as long as I'm here. I'm going to keep pushing the issue on race, gender.
It's their responsibility, too, to make the determination of what is sample size.
If I don't feel comfortable and I cannot be myself, I am not going to do something. And that's the one thing that my parents taught me.
My life is not a movie.
My life is a mess, and I'm giving these people, advice.
They'll have Google Glass or something, they'll face match you, and they'll go, Dominic, come here. And I'll go, I don't have time. And they go, no, we pulled up your calendar. You still have 20 minutes. You can talk to me.
I don't like the word sustainability.
I believe it's sexy, because smart is sexy.
Everybody lined up, please. Have fun, guys. Good luck.
Social responsibility in all its forms can be, in the Gordon Gekko sense of the word, good for the bottom line.
I totally disagree with that.
I would never work on a company that I don't believe on the values.
The French government recognizes the value of the fashion industry much more so than the US government.
We're more or less out for 2 weeks, spending 65 to 70% of our budget. Yet come September, I'm out on a 6-week dog and pony show.
Scent and emotion live in the same part of the brain. So when you smell something, you automatically have a feeling about it.
A lot of problems in your life, then you hear that track that, you love, and suddenly something, saves you.
Creating that experience is just a passion to execute at the highest level possible.
Anyone aspiring to be Joanna Coles needs to have much bigger dreams, much bigger dreams. I don't really feel I have a voice, it's just what's going on in my head.
One of the reasons retail is fucked is because retail fucked itself.
Experience, environment, and emotion.
Or do you feel you can bypass kind of media and just do it yourself?
Because realistically, the lifespan of an Instagram post is about 2 hours.
And I think that social media makes fashion faster.
To what extent do you think the consumer's at fault here, and to what extent is the company at fault?
We have to keep changing our business model. There's no way we can keep doing things the way we are.
So I think we've gotten so wedded to the object that we're not thinking about the process.
Silicon Valley designing for Silicon Valley.
Music go, panel go.
We said 20 minutes, 5 minutes Q&A, then we're off. That's what we did. And plenty of people said to me, oh, it should have been longer. Yes, it should, but remember, this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end of it.
Wow, good morning, everybody. What a thrill it is to be here. You probably may not have heard, but I just arrived off 31 hours of flying an airport, straight from the airport to the stage, which means I'm kind of a bit wound up, but I spend most of my time wound up. So I'm going to talk to you about fashion, culture, and design, and it's a great thrill for me to be here. You see, what I was just listening to from the lady that spoke earlier really resonated with me, because design touches everything. Everything, every single thing you're looking at right now, everything we're touching, this clicker, what I'm wearing, what you're wearing, what we drink from, this stage, everything is designed. There's nothing without design, if you could put it that way. Because people talk about finance and engineering and medicine and the law, but none of that would exist without design. So I'm so excited that this is about co-design, because design is part of everything. So anyway, my name's Simon Collins. I don't have any notes, as you can see, because I make it up as I go along. And I was sitting there thinking, one of these days I should write a speech down, but I never will, because I never quite know what I'm going to say, because I'm always excited by where I am. Anyway, my name is Simon Collins, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am and why I'm here, so that then you can judge whether you want to listen to what I say or not. This is where I've worked. I've been very lucky. I've had a very, very long career. I'm terribly old, and I've worked for some really, really smart people, some brilliant people, and I've listened to the brilliant things they've said. And what I've done through my career is I've listened to what they said, and then I've remembered the best bits. And what you're going to see over the next hour is some of the best things that I've learned through my career, and that I've read from famous people, and things that have brought together to create what I see as this campaign against bad design. You see, bad design drives me crazy. It really does. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. But as you can see on here, I've worked for some wonderful people. Nike, I was actually living in Hong Kong, working for Nike, looking after Asia. So I spent time in Thailand as well as China and Malaysia and other parts. Itochu, the Japanese company, I worked for them in London, working with an Italian company. Burberry, of course, very English. Ralph Lauren, quintessentially American. So I've had a very international background. Started here. So I went to fashion school in England. I wanted to be a great fashion designer, and when I left fashion school, I took a studio and I started making men's suits. I've always had a passion for menswear. I've always felt that it's not been given the respect that it deserves. We hear much about women's fashion, of course, and women's fashion is very exciting, but I've always been excited by menswear. So you can see here some suits that I'd made. I was a tailor. I literally made suits. I worked in London for many years. I worked for Marks & Spencer and some companies like that, and also in Italy for Ermenegildo Zegna. And then I found myself in America as a creative director. So in 1997, I moved to New York to become the creative director of Fila, the sportswear company from Italy. So you're sensing a theme here. Everything is international. So I worked in New York for perhaps 5, 6, 7 years, and then I found myself in Hong Kong. As I mentioned, I worked for Nike, and I was creative director of Nike Asia Pacific. And this is one of the projects that I did. And again, we're talking about collaboration and international. So this was a project we did with Comme des Garçons. We all know Comme des Garçons, the world-famous, incredibly high-end Japanese designer. Junior Watanabe was the guy that I worked with. And we did a collaboration. We worked together, Nike and Comme des Garçons. We had a mutual respect. We both deeply admired each other's companies, and we collaborated. But I want to be clear about what collaboration means. These days, I was driving in from the airport, and I saw a lot of celebrities on billboards advertising tires and tennis rackets and all kinds of things like that. And sometimes you see a celebrity, and they say, well, you know, I'm now working with this company to help them. No, they're not. That's not collaboration. That's advertising. Advertising is great. Love it. But it's not collaboration. Collaboration is where you work together. Now, this was a collaboration because we would come up with Nike designs. We'd give them to Junior Watanabe. He would work on them. He'd give them back to us. We'd work on them a little bit more. We'd give them back to him. He'd finish them off, and then we'd sell them. This is actually Junior's store in Osaka. We refitted one of his own stores and turned it into a Nike collaboration store. So I go on about this because it's impossible to overstate the importance of collaboration, of working together. You can't do anything on your own. Nothing. Nothing. Nobody does anything. Picasso didn't work on his own. Nobody works on their own. From Nike, I went to Parsons. Now, Parsons was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. When I arrived at Parsons, it was a quiet, respected design school. I knew about it, I'd heard of it, and I lived in New York, but I didn't really know why I knew about it. It was just one of those names that I thought, yeah, I like Parsons. So you want to hear about how I ended up there? I was literally in a coffee shop in New York with my daughter, who at the time was about 1 year old, and we were playing, and across the table from me, think about this next time you go for coffee, across the table from me was a young woman and a young man, and it turned out that she was a professor and he was a student, and he wasn't a very good student, if I'm honest. He was a little bit lazy. So she was telling him that he was lazy. So I overheard them talking while I'm playing with my daughter, and when he got up, I said, no, sit down. And he said, why? Who are you? So I said, oh, I work in fashion, you know, I've done a few things. Anyway, I went on to tell him what I thought about what he was doing and how I felt that in order for him to be successful, he'd have to change. And at the end of that conversation, the professor said to me, would you like to come to Parsons and tell everybody else that? So I said, yeah, sure. I heard of Parsons. I didn't really know what they did, but I'd heard of it. I went in and I was consumed. I was consumed by passion for education. And I hadn't been in a school since the day I left, but I went in and there were these eager minds, these young people from all over the world, and they were desperate to become fashion designers and people working in the fashion industry. And that enthusiasm, that passion got inside me. And I thought, wow, I have to do something here. I have to be part of this. And they, a couple of weeks later, they said to me, look, we don't really know you, but we've looked you up and we quite like what you've done. We're looking for a dean. Would you consider applying? Now, any of you that are involved in education know that typically colleges don't go to somebody with zero experience and say, will you be our dean? But this is New York. And New York, if something's right and it looks right and we like it, we'll do it. We won't let tradition get in the way. We won't let what's generally done get in the way. We'll just do it. So we did. So I joined Parsons, and I've never experienced anything like it. I walked in on day one, and I thought, wow, look at this place has been around for 100 years. It's trained some of the world's greatest designers, but nobody knows. So I made it my mission to turn it into a global power brand. And that's what we did. That's why I'm here. You wouldn't, 7, 8 years ago, I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't really know about Parsons. But I spent 8 years making everyone aware of it. This is one of the things we did. I was on a TV show in Beijing. I did it for 5 years. We had, I think, 5 million viewers. And it was a competition, a fashion competition. And why I loved it was because, and I don't like a lot of fashion TV. I think it's garbage. It is. But this one I loved, because this one, the grand prize for this fashion competition was to come and study at Parsons. That made sense to me. Because when people finish a TV show, what they should do is go and start learning. They're not ready for the industry. So that's what this one was. Anyway, I told you I'd tell you what I think bad design is. It's funny, someone said to me, I gave a speech a few years ago in Brazil, and at the end of it, somebody said to me, so what's bad design then? And I told him what I thought it was. He said, well, who gets to decide? And I said, well, the fact is, I do. I decide what bad design is, but also so do you. You all get to decide. And then if you don't like it, you don't buy it, or you don't use it, or you don't go there, or you don't watch it. Whatever it is, you don't take part in it. And if it's good design, you do take part in it. And of course, that's what everybody does. That's what the consumer does when they're in a store, or if they're trying to choose your school or your product. They decide, or your country. If they say, oh, where should we make this? Where should we set up our new head office? If they feel like somewhere has got a passion for great design or an openness to it, okay. Whereas if they see a country that's like, no, not really, no. So anyway, let me give you a concrete example of bad design. I was in an office in December 2013, and I needed to use a computer. So I sat down, switched it on. It was an Apple computer, turned on the internet, and it went to the landing page. December 2013, and this was the landing page. Forgive me. There goes my joke. This was the landing page. President Nelson Mandela had just passed away. And Apple felt that that was more important than promoting their computers. So it's December 13th, 2 weeks before Christmas, prime selling time for iPhones and computers and everything else. But instead of selling stuff, they put a picture of Nelson Mandela on their landing page. This is probably one of the most visited pages on the internet. So then I looked at Microsoft. And that's what Microsoft had. Now that is an ugly page. That is ugly. My daughter's now 9. She wouldn't design that because she'd think it was garbage. should do a much better job. If anyone works for Microsoft in the room, I'm not going to apologize because, I mean, it is garbage. But look at it. It's Christmas. Look at the deal of the day. It's Christmas, so look, we'll use red and green with little snowflakes just to make sure you know it's Christmas. Whereas Apple said there are some things that are bigger than selling stuff. We think this person, one of the century's greatest statesmen, is more important than selling stuff. Now, you can have your own point of view on that, and I respect it either way. But the point is, this appealed to me as an Apple consumer and made me passionate about their product. It made me think, that's a company that really cares about their consumers. This one, they want to sell you some more stuff, which didn't make me feel good. So that, in my mind, is an example of bad design. So what am I doing about it? Well, this is my campaign, so I'm going to take you through some examples of what I've done through the years and what I think are some rules about how we make design better. Now, I've given talks about this kind of thing around the world many times, and through the years it's emerged that while I can give you rules on how to run a fashion company, everyone expects that, I have a background in fashion, these rules also apply to whatever company you're in, whether you're in a bank, whether you're in an airline, which I just endured over the last 31 hours. I've got some constructive suggestions for them. But the fact is, the suggestions I'm going to make to you, one, they're perfectly obvious. So I fully expect so many people in this room this morning to say, well, yeah, I know that. Well, that's obvious. Yeah, I get that. Well, yeah, I'm already doing that. But the fact is, right, you're probably not doing it. And if you are, I bet your colleagues aren't. And that will become a little bit clearer as we talk more. So my design is this. This is like the epitome of it. You just watch the video, so I won't show you it again. But fashion culture design. When I was at Parsons, I went around the world all the time, and I brought people together. I created projects and collaborations and enterprises with all kinds of different international companies. And I created, more than that, I created conversations. So indeed, I came to Thailand. The reason I'm here today is because my very good friend Wiwat heard me speak maybe 5 years ago when I came to Thailand, and we got along very, very well, and he asked me if I would come back. So I did that all over the world. That's what I do. And when I left Parsons, I was there for 7 years, in fact, and after 7 years, I thought, you've had enough of me. So I left, but I'm still on the board, I'm still very close to the school, but I felt, how can I continue these conversations? How can I get people in the room, get them talking, and create solutions? So this is what came of it. I thought, I'm going to get all my friends together. So I've got lots of friends, and many of them are in quite influential positions in companies around the world. So I thought, I'm going to bring lots of them together in a room a little bit like this, and I'm going to have 10 different conversations through the day. And they're going to be about things that are really important to me. Things like, what does beauty look like now? It used to be that beauty was seen as being predominantly white, skinny supermodels, but not anymore, and we'll come to that. But also, what's the future of wearable tech? What's the future of Fashion Week? Should companies stand for something more than just profit? And I thought, well, I'm going to get all these conversations going, and I'm going to put 4 or 5 people on stage, and I'm going to ask them the question, and we're going to see what comes out of it. And so that's what fashion culture design is. I won't show you the video again. So that was part of what I was doing to address my campaign. So let's come to some of the rules which I think we all need to be aware of and we all need to embody. Now, you are your own story. Wherever you go, whatever you do, whether you're on a date, whether you're at school, at your child's school, whether you're at school yourself, whether you're at work, whether you're on stage, whatever you're doing, you are your own story. And what that means is the way that you're sitting right now, in the seat you're sitting in this room, the way that you're sitting, that's part of your story. And I'll give you an example. When I first took over at Parsons, I gave a speech much like this, and I said, any questions? And there was a young man at the back, and he was sitting like this. And he went, yeah, I've got a question. And he asked me a question like that, and I thought, okay, all right, well, good question, but I'm going to remember you. Because he was giving off a certain impression. So you are your own story, the way that you dress, whatever you wear, the way that you walk. It's all part of your story. And of course, by extension, all of your team. If you run a school, if you run a company, if you run a store, whatever you do, it's all your story. And I know that's obvious. Of course it's obvious. Except for no one does it all the time. Anyone here that's interviewed people for jobs, you know that half the time when they walk in, you think, I'm not doing that, I'm not hiring that one, because they walk in like that. That doesn't work, because you are your own story. This is my story. So I was at Parsons for 7 years. When I decided to step down, I was running a school, quite a big one, but not a massive one. It wasn't Harvard. But when I decided to step down, the New York Times reported it. And then page 6, for those of you that don't know, page 6 is the gossip column in New York. So I was on the gossip pages and on page 6. And then when I announced I was going to do a new job, which was helping New York Fashion Week, that was in the news too. Now, I know that's sort of like showing off a bit. Forgive me for that. But the point is, I was telling my story. I made sure that the story that went out there was the one that I wanted to tell. And that wasn't by hiring a big shot PR company. That's because I lived it. Because I am me. Like the reason I don't have any notes, I don't need notes. I'm only telling you what I know. It's not a mystery. Brilliance only. So, again, this is obvious. Why would you do something if you weren't going to do it brilliantly? Why? But the fact is, people don't. They get to the end of the day and they think, oh, I really wish I had another hour because I want to make this a bit better, but I just couldn't quite do it. Well, then don't send it. Don't. I was very clear with my team at Parsons. If we couldn't do it brilliantly, don't do it. Don't. If you're doing something, if you're interviewing somebody, if you're creating a picture, whatever you're doing, making a proposal, designing an invitation, throwing a party, if you can't do it brilliantly, don't do it at all. I'll tell you why, because the guy down the road, he will do it brilliantly. Or the woman, she'll do it brilliantly, and you won't, and you'll lose. Now, I know that's obvious, and forgive me, I said at the beginning, all the things I say are obvious. But time and again, you see that people didn't do it. And you think, why bother? Why bother to do it if you don't do it brilliantly? This is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. So this is Rick Owens' show from Paris Fashion Week. Remember I said, what does beauty look like? Imagine this. Imagine the scene. You're at Paris Fashion Week. Anna Wintour is in the front row. All the other fashion luminaries are sitting there, and they're sitting there like this, expecting skinny white girls to walk down the runway looking all gorgeous and elegant. And these incredible, powerful women come out instead, and they're shouting, and they're angry, and they're showing their clothes, and they're doing this dance. Imagine the passion that created. Imagine that. I can't stop talking about it now, and it was 3 years ago. Brilliance only. It was utterly brilliant. Careful who you play with. It's funny that, because it's all about co-design, isn't it? It's all about making friends, influencing people, collaboration, making sure that you don't do it on your own. But be very careful who you play with, because all the things that I'm suggesting that you need to do, you have to make sure your partner's doing them as well. You don't want to be working with the wrong person, because the thing is, nothing ever goes away. If you collaborate with a company and it's not really the one you should have worked with, well, 5 years from now, we're going to know that's what you did. So I've been pretty conscious of this, and I've worked really hard to make sure that I only work with the people that I think are the best. And as a result, at the end of it, this sort of thing happened. So Hermès were doing a launch, and they wanted somebody to interview Véronique Rachien, who's their creative director of men's. And so they rang me up in New York and said, will you come and do it? And I said, I'd be delighted. And the reason was, they'd seen me interviewing lots of different people before, and they knew that I could be trusted. And I have no idea what I'm going to say. I mentioned that at the beginning. But they knew that whatever I would say would be positive, respectful, probing, challenging, but good. And it's because I made sure that I paid with the right people. Victoria Beckham, she doesn't make house calls. She doesn't pop and see people. But she came to Parsons, and she came to Parsons because she wanted to talk about fashion, and she wanted to talk about fashion in a way that people would respect. And so she felt this was the right place to do it. So she came and she spent the whole day there. She got bitten just as I did. by the bug of design, by being surrounded by these passionate... Incidentally, if any of you get the chance to speak at a school, do it immediately. It's almost like the fountain of youth. If anyone's as old as me, you'll understand that. Go straight to the school and speak, because you will be so inspired. And so, as was Victoria when she came to speak with us. This gentleman, Francois-Henri Pinault, he's the owner and chief executive of the Kering Group. Kering, of course, as you all know, own Gucci and YSL and Bottega Veneta and Alexander McQueen and Stella McCartney and lots of other companies. And he, too, doesn't make house calls. He's not in the habit of popping around, but he came to see us at Parsons because he knew that something was going on there. And he said, what's going on? I want to find out this. You know, I need this. And he's a European. You know, he has a European company that predominantly they would go to London, to the fashion schools there, but no, they came to New York because they wanted to find out what we were doing. And it was because we'd made the right friends. We'd partnered with the right people. And LVMH. So any of you that know about the French houses, you know Kering is on this side, LVMH is on this side, and they don't talk. They are not friends. They are both, they're rivals, they probably have a grudging respect, but they don't like talking about each other. However, they'll both work with us. They're both great friends of Parsons and myself, because they knew that we were the right people to play with. We'd made the right friends. Be nice. I love this one. After I give speeches to CEOs, they always go away and think, oh, I never thought of that. I never thought of being nice. It's so obvious. But people think, no, be direct, be tough, like be efficient, get the results that you want, make the bottom line, all these different things. Like you can be cool, but make sure you deliver. Yeah, you need to do all those things. But if you're not nice, I don't want to work with you. If it's not fun, what's the point? I don't want to do it. I'm not going to. And I'm lucky. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do unless I think it's fun. So be nice. And I challenge anyone to consider that trivial. Because people do. People think, oh, be nice, this is business. Well, yeah, but we all get, along the way, we get a chance to choose who we do business with and who we don't do business with. And I like to do business with people who I think are nice. And this is what happens. My assistant put this picture in. The chap in the middle is the Consul General for the UK in New York. And he wanted to invite a bunch of people to come and meet Her Royal Highness. So I said I'd be thrilled, honored, and privileged, and so I did. But of course, the only reason was that you've got something to offer. You are your own story. You do things brilliantly. You've got the right friends. Be careful who you play with. You've got to be nice. So that was why I was invited. This is another example of that. So when I arrived at Parsons, I said, are there books about the school? There must be a book. I mean, we've been in business 100 years. We've created these great designers. And everyone sort of scratched their head and said, no, actually, there isn't. So I said, well, we better write one. So this is 30 of the most notable alumni from Parsons. And I went to interview all of them. I got together a small team of a student photographer, videographer, researcher, and we went to visit all of these different designers, including So-Hyun Lee, who some of you may know is the granddaughter of the man that founded Samsung. She now runs big chunks of Samsung in Seoul. And Yoli Tang and Donna Karen, Jason Wu, Alex Wang, so many of these other household name designers. And they all went to Parsons, but nobody had been to see them. Nobody had made friends with them afterwards. And I said, what are you doing? Come on, let's go and make friends with these people. They're lovely. So I did. And I wrote a book. That's the back cover of it. The School of Fashion, it's called. And I did it for lots of reasons. It's nice to write a book. It's fun. But I wanted to connect with these people. I wanted to build this network so that then, of course, when we come back to what I just did, fashion, culture, design, then people know who I am. And they think, oh, all right, this guy, we can trust him. Yeah, this is okay. So this was another way of creating that network and telling my story and bringing people in. There's another example of it. So you can't see those people, but that's okay. These are all the speakers from Fashion Culture Design. So we had 48 people in one day. Whoever put this event together, it's a beautiful event. Excuse me. Imagine doing it with 48 speakers drawn from around the world. But they did it, and they did it. These are all my friends. And they did it because they believe in the conversation. They believe in all the different things that I'm talking about. And they know that together, working together, that's how we're going to make great things happen. This is worth bearing in mind. Everything you do will follow you, which is another way of saying the worst thing you ever did in business is how I'm going to judge you. So you know, like say you're running events and you get to one point of the event and you think, oh, I just haven't got time to work on the lighting, right? I just haven't got time for it or haven't got the budget for it. So you don't work on it. And people arrive at your event and then they're going to go, oh, it was a good event, but the lighting was terrible. And then they're going to remember. And then 5 years down the line, someone's going to say, you're going to go to that event. And then their friend will say, oh, the one with the really bad lighting, you mean? That's it. That's what they're going to think. Everything you do will follow you. So that's why you can never let your guard down. Brilliance only. Remember I mentioned that. It's like, I get so passionate about it. And I'm lucky because I'm surrounded by really smart people in this room. And I know you're all there thinking, well, there's another obvious point. What's this guy doing? But people don't think about it. And they always think, oh, let's not worry about that little bit. You have to worry about it. You have to, because it's going to come back and bite you. This one comes back to bite me, but I like it. I'm happy about it. So John Galliano, many of you will know, in my mind, one of the finest designers alive today. And he did something terrible 3 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago, and he was fired and properly punished, and that was entirely appropriate. And then after a suitable period, when he'd worked very, very hard at redeeming himself, about learning about what he said, many people thought it was time for him to come back and resume being some kind of designer. And so I felt very strongly that John should come and speak at Parsons, because I thought we're an open school. We believe in giving people a second chance, and this is the place for him to come and speak. So we decided we were going to do that. What I didn't realize was that there's a great many people who don't feel that way. And so sadly, we weren't able to do it. It turned out that what was going to happen as a result of it was a lot of protests, a lot of ill feeling, and we just didn't feel like we could risk that happening to the school. So we didn't do it. Now, you might think that was a failure, therefore. I got a lot of bad press about it. People tried to get rid of me. There were petitions online to have me removed. I got lots of very, very nasty messages. And, you know, listen, I understand people's feelings about it. I think there's an appropriate way of protesting, and that may not have been the case. But I understand, and I respect them. I still think I was right. And this follows me around, and I'm glad. I don't care. This is part of my story. And I tell you this, it's funny, I was reading a story the other day, and they were talking about everyone needs to get fired at least once in their career. Well, I've been fired way more than once. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing. You need to get fired. You need to understand that work isn't that important, and it can be taken away any minute. So it's one of those things that made me who I am. I learned from it, and I'm not embarrassed about it. And this didn't happen, and I got fired on other things, not from this. But my point is that whatever you do is going to follow you around. So either, if you embrace everything you're doing all the way through, it's okay. It's okay. Think global. So, of course, I mean, obviously, I mean, really, completely obviously, except people don't do it. Now, here I am, a result of the international freedom that I have. I can go around the world. I can go any country in the world. I can do practically anything I want. I'm extremely fortunate, very, very fortunate. And I've always thought like that. I'm an Englishman. I grew up in England. It's a very international thinking country. So to me, it's perfectly normal to go anywhere I want. Of course, I mean, why wouldn't I? I don't understand the idea of not going somewhere else. But of course, there are countries that don't think like that think people should come to them, or think that what they have is so special, other countries should want it. I remember I used to go to China an awful lot, but when I started going there intensely, it was about 10 years ago, and I would give speeches much like this, and CEOs of companies would ask me questions. They would often say, how can we create a great Chinese designer? How can we make people want Chinese products that look Chinese? And I said, well, here's how you can do it. You can't. You can't, because nobody else wants to be Chinese apart from Chinese people. Which sounds obvious, but it's not, apparently. Now, of course, China's moved on a lot from there, and a lot of other countries have too. I know we are going to be talking about what we can do to help Thailand to appeal more internationally in various different ways. But I want to give examples about what I mean by that. So we've got some images on the screen right now. Typically international-looking images, I think, quite trendy, you know, quite chic. Could be from London, I suppose. Could be from New York. Could be from Europe. Here's some more images from the same company. I don't think anything about that looks Japanese. I might be wrong, but I can't see anything about that that's particularly Japanese. However, it is Uniqlo. The reason I show that is because Uniqlo, of course, is a very international company. And they don't, although they are very Japanese, they don't feel the urge to look Japanese. And a big mistake that a lot of countries make when they're thinking about how do they export, particularly in terms of fashion, is, well, how do I make it look more like us? You know, how do we inject our culture into it? Well,